Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Ring Daily. It is Friday, all day, every day here, even though Paul tries to convince me otherwise sometimes. And we got a special little kickoff here because our friends at Cloudberry, they've been helping us out lately. And, well, as you guys know, actually, Paul really likes the software. I've been starting to use the software a little bit. And we also have Kenny here, who is using the software. And Kenny and Paul, for that matter. Kenny, can you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. My name is Kenny Grayson. I'm the owner of Grayson Data Services, and we're a little small managed service provider IT company. Nothing else special.
Nothing
else special. That is special.
Yeah. I mean, I can juggle.
Obviously, the reason you're here today is that you're a Cloudberry backup user, and if you don't mind, I think we're curious about how you use the product. Maybe how you came to the product, if you used anything else before the solution, why you made the switch and so forth.
Yeah, so that's easy. I did use quite a few other products before, some of them local, some of them cloud-based as well, and just had mixed reviews across the board. And one that I thought I really enjoyed, I realized that I had issues mostly with their support and the speed of the backup and recovery was somewhat throttled. So that put me on a task to go find something that was not throttled and I could actually get support if I needed it. And I would have liked to have had a little bit more control. A lot of these other products didn't give me a lot of power. It was pretty much you could just turn it on and set a time and you didn't have any other options. After lots of Googling, I'm not sure why it took so long to find the #1 cloud backup solution, but I did Google around and I tried the trial on a few laptops, a few local backups, local servers, cloud servers, even Exchange and SQL. And I was a little bit shocked because I had so many options to click when I was trying it, which wasn't a bad thing.
Right.
And then during the trial, which was nice because I wasn't paying anything, I actually sent a request to support just to see how fast it was, and took a total of 2 hours to get the answer I needed, which that was way faster than about the 2-month turnaround time I was getting with the previous providers. And then essentially just started migrating a couple of my smaller clients to it just to make sure there were no other issues. And now it's the only product I use. So my clients are happy because it's easy for them to manage themselves. It integrates, I use ConnectWise, so it integrates very well with ConnectWise. So I don't have to actually proactively monitor the backups. When something goes wrong, I get a ticket automatically created, which is very nice because I don't want to monitor someone's backups. I only want to know when it's broken. But the options are amazing. The backup time and recovery it's fast. I'm leveraging S3 as my storage provider, so I have no complaints.
Okay, that's what. Yeah.
Question for you. What is the actual, when you say backup size, how much data are you actually backing up? Like, can you give us a ballpark?
Yeah, probably around 10 to 12 to 13 terabytes or so a month. That's probably about across the board. Maybe a little more. I haven't really looked in a little while, but across all my clients, somewhere between 10 and 15 terabytes.
Do you take advantage of anything like tiered storage? I know with S9 you have different alternatives with Glaciers, et cetera. I mean, do you do anything like that?
I do. A lot of my clients really only want to keep their backup for usually a max of 30 days. They kind of figure and a lot of these smaller clients do the 30-day backup.
Right.
The larger ones that want to keep it for so many years for retention policies and everything else, I do take advantage of Glacier storage for those. I leverage normal S3, and I also leverage the infrequently accessed storage for a touch cheaper for the whole 30 to 60-day window, sometimes 90-day window. And then after that, I move the backups to Glacier storage. So a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I also leverage local storage. So I have a couple of clients that do like a hybrid type of backup.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do local storage to a little NAS device that has, NAS storage is cheap, 10, 15 terabytes local. They back up full backups every night. And then they also back up the critical stuff to the NAS and to S3 using Cloudberry.
Are these customers typically doing this for end user PCs, or are you providing, is this servers, online servers?
It's a mix, honestly. I have some clients that only leverage a couple of online instances and mostly are a mobile workforce. So one in particular has around 80 to 100 PCs and there's no physical location. And so I use Cloudberry on every one of those. Some they have chosen to be a little bit more critical, so they do the full image backups of the devices. And then others, I just do file level backups of selected files and folders, which is a good chunk of it. But it's very nice because one of the nicer settings about Cloudberry is I can very easily just click a box and say if it missed the backup the night before because they were out at an event or something, it'll just pick up the next morning when they turn the machine on. That with a combination of the throttling policy, while they're working during the day, it's doing a backup of whatever changes occurred the day before, and it doesn't really impact their day-to-day use.
Nice.
It's a nice product.
Yeah, I've been testing it. Of course, as an individual, it's kind of hard. I don't have a lot of machines, or a lot of data to work off of, but I've been using it over time and trying to, see how it works. And one of the things I'm really curious about is the disaster recovery aspect of it, right? Whether you're talking about a system image of a PC because of a hardware failure, or just the file access, recover. Do you have any, or what kind of experience do you have with that type of activity with Cloudberry?
So I'd probably say in most of the recovery type of experience I have with Cloudberry, it's someone says I deleted a file, or I've deleted a bunch of folders or something like that. Or I've had a couple say they've deleted some messages out of Exchange, like our Office 365, I think was the exact case. That is probably the Office 365 recovery is probably the easiest thing I've ever done.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fast, it's easy. There's no complaints about that one. The file recovery, once I show the end user, I will gladly do this for a fee for you. But most of the time they realize they could just open the application, browse the file they want, hit recover, and they're happy. Now, in just testing myself, I did do a bare metal recovery, which was nice, but obviously, it depends on internet. If you're doing bare metal, that's a lot to download. So the bottleneck is really your local internet, which at the time I was on decent speed internet. It didn't take too long, but there's nothing to get around that. You're using cloud storage. So and then another option you can do is you can actually take a image-based backup and recover it. Depending on the storage provider you're using, since I'm using S3, it's possible. You can recover it right to an EC2 image, like our instance right in the cloud. So that's kind of cool. I don't know that I have any clients that are actually going to want that, but I did it just to see if how to do it. It wasn't terribly difficult. So.
Well, that's interesting. My own thing, a system image backup, a recovery, I should say, I just do locally off a NAS because of the same reason you cited. And then I'm really curious about the recovery to VM functionality as well. Although I would imagine most cases you'd be doing that either for a server or just because you needed some broad set of backups. Sorry.
Or like not necessarily just a server, but some people want to test their disaster recovery. So you could test it to a cloud instance without impacting production, impacting the local network, or having to do anything locally, really. And the client can then log in, see an isolated instance, play with it, change it, manipulate data, whatever they need to do, and it doesn't impact anything. When you're done, you just delete it and move on. So the DR side for disaster recovery, that plays a good fit into it. But for the small business that's fully mobile based, that doesn't come up very often. But for more of the enterprise type of clients, that's a good fit. And a lot of my clients, or not a lot, but a lot of the bigger ones, they'll actually just back up some machines locally that they don't care about, but they're pretty sure the end user's probably a little click happy and will get a virus.
Just so for the performance.
Yeah, they do image-based backups. They only keep them like, I think 3 or 5 days or so. It's a real short period that they keep. That way when the user gets a virus, the IT staff on site honestly doesn't care. They just recover from the previous night and move on. They don't have to go figure out how to fix a virus or if they even removed it all. They just recover local and don't worry about it. So that's being able to offer. I didn't offer that before because I didn't really have a hybrid type of solution that worked local and offsite. And when I did, it wasn't very seamless. This one, and you click new backup plan, and option 1 is cloud, option 2 is hybrid. It's
you don't need 2 separate backup systems. You can just use the same thing and use it as you will.
Yep, it's very, very nice. I have not played with their dedupe option. I haven't played with that. It's something I do want to test and play with. I'm sure it works really well. I read about it, and For the most part, once you do the first initial seed, that's really your only inconvenience. But I have looked at the dedupe a couple times for some larger clients. I haven't really tried to implement it yet. And then they have an option on the image-based block level backups for synthetic fulls, which, man, that makes a world of difference in time. Because that initial seed, it takes a while no matter what. I mean, unless you've got some significant internet. If you're backing up a lot of machines or just slow internet in general, it takes a while. If you're doing that much volume, file backup, stuff like that, it's no sweat. But the synthetic full is really nice. Saves you a lot of time, actually.
Do you take advantage of any of their encryption capabilities, or do you just, the Cloudberry-based encryption?
I do. I encrypt. I encrypt server side, and I leverage their compression. So it's right there on the same screen. Do you want compression? Yes. Do you want encryption?
Yep.
Yeah, it's honestly like when I first opened it, this is not a complaint. I was a little bit overwhelmed because there were a lot of options.
Yep.
Because of not that it's a bad thing. It's just when I first opened it, compared to the other providers I was using, where it was pretty much you only could pick the time of the backup and maybe what you want to back up. Cloudberry is a normal backup solution that any IT provider or any slightly tech user friendly person is used to seeing all those options. And when I opened it, I was like, man, I don't know what checkbox to check. But it really once I just actually read the screen, it wasn't terribly difficult. A few minutes, I had my first backup running. The next evening, I played around with recovering some files and seeing how the block levels worked. It was really just me playing and having fun with the product to confirm it actually did what it was supposed to do. And I was very happy. Like I said, I've migrated all of my clients to it. I have no complaints. And when I was talking earlier about the speed of the backup, some backup providers, I played around with a couple other storage providers, and they were cheaper priced, which is nice about Cloudberry because when you open it up, there's like 50 providers to choose from. Yeah. I don't know the real number, but it's a lot.
There are dozens for sure.
There's a lot of them.
Yep.
So I leverage S3 pretty much all the time because I don't. It's not terribly expensive, and you get the recovery to the cloud, you have a lot of options with it. But in testing, I wanted to see what is the actual limitation of the cloud storage. I wanted to see if there's a bottleneck. So I actually took a i7 Surface Pro, the newer Surface Pro with an i7, 16 gigs of RAM, SSD, a decent size, a decent speed device. Connected it with a little USB Ethernet converter to I was the only one on this connection, to a gig up and gig down internet connection. All right. Now this machine has, I wanted to test, it has a local database. It has about 100 gigs of pictures, probably 50 or so gigs of images, documents, things like that, plus Windows. So as far as compression goes, and backup wise, like that was an oddball test that's probably not going to ever happen. But it was around 350, 400 gigs total of used space on this device. And no lie, when I had no throttle and I had the only dedicated 1 gig up and down internet connection, it actually held the i7 CPU at 100%.
And this was to S9?
S3, it was to S3.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
S9.
Yeah.
I've got
I don't know what S9
Samsung in my head right now. Sorry.
And the S9's got to be really cool storage.
Yeah, the S9 is probably not that fast.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but no, that was to S3, not the Glacier, not the infrequently accessed, just a dedicated S3. So it held the internet connection. I want to say around, I want to say it was close to 500 megabits of throughput or something. Like, so my bottleneck at that point was the CPU. It just, I purposely went in and undid any throttle possibly because I just want to see how fast it would do it. And when my bottleneck was an i7 CPU on an SSD hard drive, that I was impressed. And the backup only took like 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
really
good for local backup, by the way, for a system image. I mean, that's actually kind of unheard of.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I was very happy that my bottleneck was the PC and not the storage provider on the other end.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I did that same test with other providers. That was not the case. So the backup still took a while because apparently they must throttle some of their storage. So where S3 obviously does not, and if they do, the throttle's way higher than I can get to. So,
well, Kenny, while we've got you here, I've got a couple additional questions. What machine are you using right now?
So I'm sorry, Brad. We should prep Canning here for the weirdness of your coming questions.
They're not too crazy. I'm just curious what actual
likes to do when we interview people.
Yeah, I'm just curious what personal tech you're using. What machine are you podcasting from?
Right now, I'm actually on that same Surface Pro laptop. What is it? What do they call it now? Just a Surface Pro is their latest model.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of odd. I don't understand why they had the Surface Pro as the first one, and now the fifth one is a Surface Pro. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to keep up with that.
No one's happy with this, trust me.
Yeah, because like when I tell people, I'm like, man, I have a Surface Pro. They're like, what? The original one?
Is it an inch thick?
Yeah, and weigh 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what I'm actually running that machine right now to do this podcast. And the reason I keep looking to the right is because for some reason this video screen is on my other screen, and I have ADD and keep looking over to the right, not the camera. So.
Actually, if you do that, it looks like you're looking at us, so it's okay.
Oh, yeah. I can look at you?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of down here a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, okay. You're below me is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm next to you, but you kind of look.
I don't want to talk to Brad. I don't mind talking to you, though.
Wow.
So I don't want to look at Brad. He asked me personal stuff about my laptop.
Yeah, oh, it's only going to get worse.
Fortunately, Brad has control of the camera, so he can do whatever he wants. And then one last question, actually two more. What cell phone do you use?
Oh man, what is this? You're about to ask me my date of birth and
I
where I
told
buy
you it
ice
was going to
cream?
get weird.
Well, your mother's maiden name is next, but
how do you define true love?
Okay, so it's an iPhone.
That's fine.
I do use an iPhone. I think it's a 7 or something. Yeah, I think it's a 7S, or I don't know what it is. 7?
Mm-hmm.
It's at least a 7.
Gotcha. And then what's the best way for anybody to contact you if they have any questions about you or just in general? Is there a good way to reach out?
Define in general. Is this a Brad kind of question or like a real question?
Once again, Brad has
exact
control of the
physical
camera,
address?
so he will do what he wants because it's apparently sandbag on top of Brad Day. No, but just anybody has
Okay,
questions.
so the best way to get in touch with us, you can go to our website at GraysonDS4dataservices.com. And on there's an email address, phone number, everything. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Perfect. Well, we very much
the
appreciate
best part of this thing is, by the way, is how closely your real world experiences with this thing map to what I found just testing it, right? Because I have to invent disaster recovery. Let's just, like you did, let's test it to see if it works. Because my age-old problem with backup and recovery is that the backup always ran fine, but the recovery part was always a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And it's neat because we've never talked before today, just to be clear. I mean, you know that, but the people watching this or whatever may not realize. It's not like we hung out together and prepped each other with all the nice things we're going to say.
Well, if I would have talked to Brad before today, I wouldn't have joined.
That's nice. So no, it's interesting because you've literally kind of run the gamut, I think, of what the product can do in many ways, and it's great. I mean, how well it worked out for you. So it's great. Thank you for doing this.
And I want to make sure I stress one thing: the support is there. That's a big thing when you're a managed service provider and you run into this oddball case that.
Well, because someone's waiting on you as well, right?
Yeah, and it's your neck on the line, and
that's
you
right.
just send an email, and the response is usually fairly quick.
Yeah,
so, and it's always right. It's not just like, oh, reboot. No, it's a real answer.
Yes.
It works. Go uncheck this box and remove this, and it's like, wow, I would have never looked at that. So,
awesome.
But yeah, that's a good thing to point out about the product as well. Not just the product, but the people that support it. So.
Great.
Well, great.
Brad,
Are you other questions, Brad?
No, I was about to say, I think I'm happy you stopped by and shared your experience, but I'm not so sure of anymore. But we very much appreciate your time for taking out of your busy day and letting us know how this has worked out for you and chatting with Paul and sandbagging me at the same time.
That's what
I thought it fit in very naturally.
All right, well, let's just keep the show rolling here. And, Paul, whoa, my lighting updated when I switch scenes. Paul, how's it going on your end over there? You still alive, buddy?
I am. I like your bigger fish diagram, by the way.
Yeah. Because Paul, well, there's a couple things we got to hit on here that are actually important that were announced. Paul, actually, while we were chatting there, let me,
yes.
Microsoft released a new build, but where did I put it? It's in one of my tabs here. Okay. So this is, have you read the changelog yet, Paul?
I was just going to discuss this topic. Yes. This is the Microsoft Mail thing.
Yeah, so Microsoft released a new build of Windows 10 moments ago, folks. Moments hot off the press. Build 17623. Now, they are calling this that they are testing this change, but my gut tells me this may not be a test. Long term, Microsoft is making it in that version of Skip Ahead Windows 10 that if you click a link in the Mail app, so the Mail app that comes with Windows 10, it's going to be forced to open in Edge. You no longer have control. Welcome to Sandbox World, everybody, where iOS is king and we're going to replicate.
Yeah. This is a much bigger issue than it may seem. I know some people are going to hear this or see this and say, what's your problem? What's the big deal? And God, the big deal. The big deal is exactly what you just said. They're taking away our control as users. They've already done too much to Windows 10, in my opinion, in that direction. And what they're really chipping away at here, and this is something I'll probably write about today, is just all of the reasons that I care about Windows. And it's getting really irritating. Really irritating.
Mm-hmm. It's we're going to make Edge a success if you're using Windows.
Yeah, am I? Or is Windows using me, Brad? See what I did there?
Where did Edge touch you, Paul?
Yes, point at the plush E.
Point at the browser.
Actually, Brad, you know what? You want to know where it touched me? I'll tell you. Right here. Yep, where it hurts the most.
I don't know if there's a cure. I don't think more cowbell is going to fix that.
Okay. Let me let's calm down from this, and I'll try not to write something that doesn't come off as the insane rantings of an Apple user.
Well, speaking of Apple, I don't know if you intended to do this intentional segue. Apple actually announced and then we'll get to the acquisitions. They announced a teaching event in Chicago for the 27th.
I could be wrong. I don't recall an Apple event for education, at least in the recent past. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about Microsoft's efforts in education, primarily because of Chromebook, which in the United States has taken over the education market. But the little part of that story that gets left out is Apple used to control the education market. And a lot of people assume that Apple still does very well in education, but that hasn't really been the truth in quite some time. So this is interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Doing some quick research here, Paul. And I'm sure there was an education event from Apple, and someone will tell us otherwise. But I'm still going to make this point, Paul. The last spring education event I went to was the Surface laptop. Maybe Apple's copying Microsoft.
Yes, and the computer they're going to offer to education is going to be a years-old version of the MacBook Air. Actually, now that I just said that out loud, I remember the last time I remember Apple specifically targeting education was with something called the eMac, which is many years old now, but it was still a tube-based iMac type device before they had flat screens. If I'm not mistaken, I think the first version still had like a tube CRT. Anyway, it's been a while.
Yeah, I remember this event. I remember that machine because actually I think my roommate in college had one.
Oh, really? An eMac? That's funny.
Yeah.
There was something about it. When it first came out, there was some advantage that it had over the regular iMac, and a lot of people were upset because you couldn't get an eMac unless you were in education. But whatever.
That's just the way it is. All right, Paul. So as I literally Googled acquisition images, and I found this nice little like tiny fish gets eaten by the bigger fish getting eaten by the.
Yeah.
So Microsoft is clearly, obviously, this fish. But,
yeah. They're never going to be the middle fish in this equation.
Yeah.
The reason, by the way, I complimented this is that in lieu of the whole Broadcom, Qualcomm, and maybe Intel was going to get involved, I actually used the headline over the weekend. There's always a bigger fish.
Ooh.
So
on that spirited note, now the rules for this question were, and if anybody has any additional questions along this line that would be great for Friday topics, let us know. But you can't go with the obvious like the Spotify, the Roku, or Steam.
Yeah. Although, by the way, just real quick, it might actually be worth a quick discussion of why Microsoft acquiring those companies actually doesn't make any sense. You know, for example, a lot of people are like, oh, Microsoft should just buy Spotify. Why? I mean, what consumer service has Microsoft shepherded to greatest success? I mean, I think that would be the worst thing that could happen to Spotify. And if you care about Spotify at all, I think that would be a huge mistake.
The only qualifier I would put on that is I don't think it makes sense for Microsoft to buy Spotify in isolation. Now, if they just broke out the checkbook and said, you know what, we're going to buy Spotify, we're going to buy Sonos,
buy Netflix,
and we're going to buy Bose. And like they'd have to buy they couldn't buy just Spotify. They'd have to buy a whole like ecosystem of things to justify, you know, it's not just a music service. But all right, Paul, you go first because I think I've got an interesting one. I'm curious to see what you came up with. And if it's the same one I did, I'm going to be pissed.
This one's this is hard because the truth is, the companies that a lot of Microsoft enthusiasts would want Microsoft to buy are not the companies that Microsoft should or would buy, right? And Spotify is a great example. Netflix is a great example. You know, we should never pretend that Microsoft is serious about those markets. Those things are always pieces that serve a bigger product. In this case, typically Windows. And frankly, it's a legacy product that's kind of winding down right now anyway. So, I mean, I think that kind of thing is ludicrous. So the Microsoft acquisitions that I think make the most sense, unfortunately, are completely outside of my wheelhouse because they're all cloud and enterprise-based companies. And one of these is going to be a little goofy and perhaps a little self-serving, but Microsoft was, I believe, was in secret talks to buy Salesforce, for example. And I think Salesforce or any of Salesforce's competitors would be an ideal target for Microsoft and would be the right type of company for Microsoft to buy. But I also think you need to look at the kind of wider set of functionality across Office 365 and Azure, Dynamics, et cetera, and you know, what pieces are Microsoft missing? And also, I should include Intune and the you know, System Center, the management stuff. And you know, this is terrible in a way, but our current sponsor, Cloudberry, sorry, backup is an interesting possibility because this is a thing that Microsoft has kind of built-in functionality for, but it's not very good. And I think the whole point of Cloudberry, as I see it, which is its openness to any cloud system, is its greatest strength, and it completely aligns with Microsoft's current corporate philosophy, right? Which is being open with all of your co-opetition or whatever. I think that would be kind of an interesting one.
So I got a couple here. One of them is very, very obvious, and I think it was actually rumored at one point that Adobe, I think, would be a natural sort of acquisition for Microsoft. But that might be real pricey, though.
No, that's a good one because it plays into the whole creators thing that Microsoft's so hot on these days. And it is complementary to the more traditional productivity tools that they have in Office 365. I think that's good.
Here's the one, though, that I actually think makes the most sense, that is outside of their wheelhouse, that could be brought into their wheelhouse for probably not a lot of money. I mean, you know, all things considered, a Microsoft bankroll. Paul, are you familiar with the company called Square? Yeah. I think that would be a perfect acquisition. For those who aren't familiar with Square, Square creates a point-of-sale terminal for small and medium-sized businesses. It basically allows turnkey-style kiosk setups in a small business. Microsoft could acquire this company. They'd have to do some tech back-end or maybe just integrate right into what they already have and bundle it with an Office 365 type thing to where you're paying on a monthly for it, and then you get an entire business suite application turnkey. So if you're spinning up a donut shop, you go in there, you click buy, it sends you the kiosk terminal. It does all the credit card processing for you. It ties right into your Excel or maybe even a baby version of Dynamics, and you are up and running as a business end-to-end solution.
Oh, that's really smart. That's a really good one.
The next one's not so good.
Good. Yeah, good. What's that?
The next one's not so good.
What's the next one?
I actually think, and this might be controversial, I think that they should buy Telegram.
Telegram, really?
Telegram is it's an encrypted chat application. It's a little bit more broad. I think we can all agree that Skype for consumers is it might even be baggage at this point because they're trying so desperately to turn it into anything.
Is this the encrypted messaging solution that like journalists use with sources and so forth? Is that Telegram?
Some of them do, yeah. But
Yeah.
I believe it's, I wonder if I can look this up. I should have done this beforehand. Telegram number of users in 2017. It's in Google search, so let's see if it comes back. Does it say Telegram monthly active user statistics from statistica.com? Okay, well, maybe it's not as big as I thought, but it's still big. 180 million monthly active users.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, I would say when it comes to messaging, it isn't so much about the number of users as it is about the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when Microsoft bought Skype, it was kind of the right technology for the day. But the thing that they didn't do particularly well was bring it forward to the kind of client-server type model or whatever, the cloud model that they eventually did move to. Because remember, it used to be like peer-to-peer. It was like it relied on actually both clients. There was some kind of weird infrastructure that they had. What do you think about cloud storage services? Does it make sense for Microsoft to look at Box or Dropbox or, well, I guess that would be those two.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
or even some of the more enterprise-focused cloud storage providers.
No and yes. Mostly, I don't think it makes sense because they have OneDrive. The reason why I hesitate is because I'm almost positive that Microsoft has actually done due diligence on both companies and said, you know what? It doesn't actually make sense to buy it, and that's why. It's because if those companies had something that was so unique that they couldn't replicate quickly, they would have snatched them up a long time ago. But right now, they just have good marketing and cloud services just like everybody else.
Docker. Your Adobe idea is maybe the best one, actually. I realize that one would be expensive, but if I'm not mistaken, Adobe also has another piece of the puzzle that would fit in nicely with your Square idea, which is, I believe they own some kind of a like secure e-sign, capability for digital signature or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, given Microsoft's focus on pen computing on the client and just Office 365, I mean, I think that'd be a nice fit.
Yeah, somebody bought, I thought, DocuSign.
Oh, DocuSign. That's separate from Adobe though, right? That's
I don't know. Did Adobe buy them?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably.
Oh no, it says DocuSign acquires tech hire and core team from Paul Allen back startup. I thought they got bought. Maybe not.
By the way, the one thing Microsoft shouldn't do more of is these stupid little mobile app companies.
Yes, thank you.
They have a really bad record of buying something really cool and just completely screwing it up, or just letting it sit there untouched. I just got an email or an Ask Paul thing this week about Microsoft To Do, which is an exact parallel of one I got back in December. Same exact problem. They bought this thing. It's supposed to replace Wunderlist and everything else. Hasn't been touched. What's going on? I'm going to ask them again. But basically, it's like they just kind of, they've got this throw it on the wall and see if it sticks kind of thing going on. And there's like these Microsoft Garage apps coming out, these kind of random apps that just appear on iOS, maybe some just appear on Android. You get all excited about it, then it disappears, or maybe they roll some of the functionality into something else. Like, they gotta really kind of figure this out. Like, there was a point. This is probably several years ago now, but let's say a couple of years ago, where I kind of complimented Microsoft because they were kind of the stodgy Office company, and they were doing these quick moving things. Like they had Microsoft Sway, and they were I forget the name of it. They had like I guess Sway is this kind of thing, but they had add-ins for PowerPoint that were basically like a new way to do presentations, especially for the classroom. And I thought, here we go. This is very interesting. Like they're trying new things, and that's something you don't often see from a kind of a legacy company like Microsoft. But now I feel like this is too much of that crap, and a lot of it just goes nowhere. Like you get, God help anyone who gets too excited about one of these apps and actually wants to use it. This is too much of it. Like Microsoft Pix is a good example. They just updated it this week for LinkedIn's integration, which is neat, unless you're one of the 80-something% of people that uses an iPhone, in which case you don't get Microsoft Pix. It's only on the iPhone. They need to wrap this up. Like, just figure out what they're doing and move forward with what that is.
The number one app they murdered, Sunrise.
Yeah, the calendar app, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you can't look. it's possible that Outlook Mobile does every single thing that Sunrise did from a calendar perspective, except for one thing. Calendar or Outlook on mobile is what Outlook is on the PC. It's like this big pig of an app with different modules that do email and contacts, and on mobile it does cloud storage management. Oh, and it does calendar. And people who liked Sunrise liked Sunrise in many ways because it was a typical mobile app. It was like a Unix thing. It did one thing. It did calendar. On mobile, it's kind of a simplified environment. We tend to think in terms of the task. I think it's hard. I think it's a hard context shift to say, oh, I want to do my email. Oh, that's Outlook. Oh, I want to do something with context. Oh, that's Outlook. Oh, I want to do something with oh, that's Outlook. Like that's the old way of doing things. And as good as that app is in some ways, and I know people, especially from the PC, kind of like it. I kind of appreciate the simplicity of these individual mobile apps. I tend to like the Google ones like Inbox and Google Calendar, but whatever. Sunrise is something I absolutely looked at. They had a nice kind of web version, as I recall, as well.
Yep.
And yeah, Microsoft swooped in, bought it. Good, I'm sure those guys all retired. Good for them. And now that thing is just dead. And God, that's just tough.
Couple shout outs from the chat room. James Chaplin said, "What about Netflix?" Which that would be expensive, but
and I just don't think that's Microsoft's role with Netflix. If there could be one, is going to be on the cloud side serving Netflix, right? And this is really the future I kind of see for Microsoft. I don't mean it has to be Netflix specific, but I really feel like Microsoft's role for us as consumers in the future is not going to be a one-to-one relationship. We're going to have a relationship with a company like Netflix, or a company that is a music service, or a company that is a gaming producer or developer or whatever. And they're going to be using Microsoft technologies on the back end, probably Azure, to host and deliver and update whatever the thing is we're consuming directly. So there'll always be like a Microsoft piece, in the puzzle,
right?
Depending on the service, obviously. But we will increasingly, as consumers, deal less with Microsoft directly. And honestly, after this Windows 10 news today, I can't say I'm disappointed in that. It's just getting a little,
This goes back to what I said initially. Netflix in isolation, I don't think makes sense. If Microsoft said, hey, we're getting back into the consumer, we're going to spend a whole bunch of money. If they went and bought Netflix and Spotify and Roku, like as a package, that might make sense. But that's way more money than they will ever spend on this stuff, and it's not going to happen.
This is, pee or get off the pot kind of material, right? Microsoft does these kind of half-assed things around music for a little while, actually for a long time, but it was always half-assed. Movies and TV like they have now. And from my perspective, I realize it's one of the tough things I have with our community, which is we're always so blindly faithful to this company for some reason, but I don't feel like they're serious about this. And I would not invest money in buying content from Microsoft in a movie or TV store. Like, I just don't ever trust them to do the right thing with it. And so some of the things you can't do right now and maybe never will be able to include watch that content on your smartphone. Go into your living room and using a simple, inexpensive set-top box like the thing you just described, a Roku or whatever, and watch that content on your TV. What is the point of a store? Well, I guess you could do it on an Xbox, which is expensive and complex and loud. Or you can use a Windows 10 PC, which is also complicated because it's a PC and because you got to figure out how to get it onto the TV. It's want to use a remote control in a box that has no fan in it. Is that too much to ask? So they either need to die. I know, I'm crazy. I just rant, I guess. But I feel like they either need to be serious about it and do all of those things, or do none of them. Just don't half-ass it. Just don't do it. I don't know, it's frustrating.
Yep.
Can you sense the frustration?
I can. That's why we're going to move on, because you're going to boil over, and the shark water back here is going to melt. Just one last quick thing on Friday. One of the things we do is take a look back at the comments. I forgot to grab 2 of them, so there's only 1 this week. And this one actually, this is interesting because I suspect other people might be feeling this way too. This comes from Chris Kez talking about Microsoft's new E3 venue. He says, I'm not even really a gamer, but I think I'm more excited for E3 than I am for Build.
Yeah, I think the reason Chris is more excited for E3 than Build is because at least we know there's going to be something in there for people. Like one of the fears that Build is, well, think about it. Yeah. They're only doing 1 keynote.
Well, we know why they're only doing 1.
What's that?
We know why they're only doing one. They can't do it on Tuesday.
Okay. Well, but we've heard nothing. I mean, look, I assume there's going to be a Windows 10 component to it. I assume they're going to talk about the next version of Windows 10 for sure. I've been saying this for a long time. I've been saying two things for a long time. One is that Microsoft's strategy for Xbox is correct, and it's excellent, and it's super, super gamer focused. Like it's excellent. But the other thing I've been talking about, and this week was revealed to be true, was my supposition that the future of Microsoft in gaming was in the cloud, that they would be that thing on the back end delivering. They are one of the few companies on earth that has the infrastructure to deliver games to any device from the cloud. That's the future, not standalone consoles that are specialty devices and last for a certain amount of time, but cloud-based game streaming. And this week we found out that's true. And so I think what Chris is alluding to here, and I did have an Ask Paul question about this as well. I don't think it was from Chris, but from somebody, was do you think that that's what they're going to talk about at E3 this year? And I do. I don't have news that is what they're going to talk about. But yeah, that is my guess. That obviously there'll be stuff for this year. I'm sure Windows Mixed Reality is coming to Xbox. The three people in the audience who are excited about that can now clap. But for the rest of us, I think the exciting thing is this future positioning, and they're already aligning it into place with things like Xbox Game Pass, which is one of the best values in the history of gaming, frankly. So yeah, I think this is going to be. There's a reason they moved out to the Microsoft Theater.
Yep.
It's that can their little booth in the convention center wasn't going to be big enough.
Yep, they've got something grander planned.
I think so. Yeah.
And we will do it. Paul, what are you doing this weekend?
God, I'm so out of it now because of this Windows thing. Like I can't even think straight. We got a Christmas gift from my sister. It's kind of like a regional wine pass thing. And you go to the local wineries, and you do it in March on weekends because no one goes to wineries in March. So this is a great way to get people in there. And my wife and daughter were away last weekend, so we need to catch up this weekend. But 2 weekends ago, the one that is closest to us on the map of all the wineries in the area has some of the best wine I've ever had in my life. And I was saying to my wife, like, how crazy is it that Pennsylvania in retrospect, it kind of makes sense. It probably has a geography that's maybe similar to Germany. Germany makes great wines, obviously, but I never thought of it as a wine growing region. But there's an awesome winery that's like 10 or 15 minutes from my house. So that's great. So I think we're going to do some of that. And then I'm just going to cry into my wine over this Windows just chipping away. Just chipping away. How about you?
Well, thank you for asking. Actually, we are going out and celebrating tonight. I posted on Twitter, my dad sold his company after 28 years, and I'm making him buy me alcohol to celebrate that. So we're doing that tonight. I think I'm going out with some friends tomorrow night to watch some basketball, and if all goes to plan on Sunday, I'm going to the driving range.
Yeah, I think you should probably be okay. This weekend's supposed to be pretty good. That's going to be not so good again for the next week. But I think it keeps getting pushed out. But I think after that, we get into what I consider spring, which is 50 degrees-ish and plus,
You're an idiot. Of course we get into spring. It starts on the 21st.
No, I mean, right. There's a calendar definition of spring, but then there's literal spring. If it's March 22nd and it's 30 degrees outside, that's not spring. I'm sorry, but
I can't handle you between coming off as here comes spring. Well, yes, Paul, the 21st. It's technically.
No, I mean literal spring.
Oh, I meant to have as my background was a picture that I texted you last night of the sun being up at 7:45.
Yeah, you put it. I think you tweeted it, but yeah, Brad texted me a picture of the skyline, with the tree and the light in the sky, and the text was 7:25, and so I wrote back fake. But I went outside. I mean, honestly, it wasn't too much darker. My wife got home last night. I showed her that, so we were kind of laughing about it. But I asked Google Assistant about our relative sunsets, and I don't remember the exact times, but yours is 35 minutes later than mine.
Yep, Paul. And just to prove that you are correct, We are getting into spring and the days that you align to, because it officially starts. I was incorrect. I thought it was the 21st. It is on March 20th. So actually, this is the last podcast of the winter.
Yeah, it normally is the 21st. I know that because it's my father's birthday and whatever. But no, you know what I mean by this. Like I sort of thought right. Well, it's funny because it is going to work out this way. When we moved here, one of the benefits of Pennsylvania versus Massachusetts is that you would basically get 1 month more of good spring weather and 1 month more at the other end of good fall weather. And that literally is happening. The weather that we have this week or next week or whatever is the weather we used to get in Boston in late April. So it is really a month better, if you will, than what we used to experience. It's still not. It is not what I want. No, but we're getting.
And I'm looking at the weather now. It's supposed to be about 55 and sunny. So that's what, I don't know, maybe like 12 Celsius, something like that. But it's supposed
to checking it because this damn thing changes every day.
It's supposed to snow
this weekend
on
was
Wednesday.
Supposed to be like 60, and it's already kind of backtracked.
Yeah, it's supposed to snow on Wednesday, which is
yeah, right. I know that's the thing. We're going to get snow next week. That's what I meant. But the following weekend, supposedly, because you know how accurate they can be, a week out, it's supposed to be in the 50s again.
Well, you got anything else for today, Paul?
No, just that the picture behind you, what it's missing is a tiny fish that's at the very end, nipping away at the big one, and that's me bitching and moaning about Microsoft screwing up Windows 10 all the time. Like a little yippy dog version of a fish.
We can make that happen. We have the technology.
Yeah. Oh,
alrighty. Well, folks, that wraps it up for today, and we'll catch you right back here on Monday.
You know how sometimes the advice is like you write this email and it's kind of scathing or whatever, and you're like, you should sit on that for a little while. That's how I feel about this Windows 10 thing. Like because right now I'm already kind of on the edge with this thing. I swear to God, if there was some alternative that made any sense at all, I would be moving to it right now.
Yeah.
Like I cannot stand what they're doing to this product. And this is one of those little. Because those edge numbers we talked about, those are fake. But let's get them up to that number. How can we do that?
Yep. Ugh. Well, they already do it through Cortana, which, as we know, didn't work out so well.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Okay.
Adios.
Thanks. Bye. There's a